no words to explain how thrilled we are to be back in the Evolve 24 studios and starting season 2 of the Deep Thynkers Society podcast. We've booked some really interesting guests this season, and we're bound to take you down a few rabbit holes. Today on the show, we have Emma Stawiki from Australia. She's a somatic healer, life coach, and psychic medium. The conversation starts off with all of us discussing somatic healing and how energy gets trapped in our bodies. But as the conversation evolves, we take a deep transformational look at how we all heal differently. There are tips to take us on our own transformational journey that is bound to have you thinking about what you can do to start yours. As we start the conversation, you may notice there are a few different things about the show this season. Carrisa C and Anthony have moved on to other important projects in their lives, so we decided to invite on special guest co hosts every week to add to the depth of the conversation. So sit back, relax, and ready to dig. Welcome, ladies. It's so good to have you both here today on our first episode of season 2 for the Deep Thynkers Society. For all of you out there who followed us last season, you might see some new faces today. I have Catherine Christmas here as my guest co-host, and I have Emma here as a somatic healer as our guest today, and we're going to talk about all kinds of fun energy healing and how the body works with energy and so on and so forth. And I thought maybe we would do some introductions real quick. So as you all know, I'm Lori Marie. I am an astrologer and energy healer as well. And I am the host for Deep Thynkers Society. Matty is having internet connections where he's at in Georgia. And Carrisa has taken the season off to delve into her doula practices, so she will not be with us. Maybe she will do a guest appearance here and there. We'll see. But Catherine, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience since you're our guest, and hopefully you'll be back a few times throughout the season.
I'm Catherine Christmas. I've had a weird archetypal life. I grew up in a religious cult and have eschewed all religion, and then found my way into the MSN forums and spiritweb.org in 1998, where it was just an influx of the ancients of the spiritual community holding present on earth connected, and I got to learn from them and learn how to do global meditations, and that was really where my spirit journey really took off, and I found purpose within doing that. And I still do global meditations today. I live between a river and railroad tracks, and I am constantly sending energy out to the earth and flowing it east through the river and west through the railroad tracks. And I've known Lori since probably, I'm going to say 2025, Lori, as best guess.
2025? You just said 2025.
No, 2005. 2005. So it'll be 20 years in 2025.
Yes,
I had 20 days stuck in my head. It might even be 20 years now. I don't know. But we met on MySpace when MySpace was the next evolution of that wave of connectivity that was taking place on the planet and the birth of collective creativity. And I'm so glad that we've maintained this friendship this whole entire time.
Yeah, it's amazing. Matty jumped in and joined us. Welcome, Matty. Matty is also our friend from the MySpace days. And I'll be honest, even pre-MySpace, some of my big influences were the early days of AOL chat room. And I still have friends from some of the astrology chat rooms. But the MySpace era really added a whole different, I have in-person friendships. I moved all the way from Georgia to live in Arizona with us that we had all met online. And I believe at one point, Catherine, you were even going to come visit and be out here for a minute.
Yep. I have gone to Arizona. I have not been able to meet up with you. But my son is still there. Yes, it will.
Wonderful. And then, so MySpace has been, a big, I think a big part of a lot of Gen X and maybe some of the earlier millennials that came together and kind of stuck together, because I think at that stage we were all sort of going through that spiritual finding ourselves era, if you know what I mean. Matty, welcome. Glad to have you back. We're doing some introductions. Do you want to introduce yourself to the audience real quick?
I'm Matt. Who are y'all? Yeah, I'm Matt.
I'm just Matt. I'm Matty.
Yeah. Who do we have here? Sorry, I jumped in this
I
late.
think,
I'm actually on my phone because my computer is messing up. So I'm trying to
yeah, I think
adjust.
are you guys getting him or is there internet?
Yeah.
It's just breaking up.
Yeah, we're not really getting you, Maddie. It's kind of cutting you out.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I don't know what's going on. Yeah,
If you want
I just
to
got.
just sit in, you can just
I
sit
just
in.
said,
It's okay,
keep going.
perfect.
Sorry, I just drove over
And
from my
so let's see what I can do here. Hold on.
computer's almost dead.
You know what? You're getting a lot of error sounds too. So if you want to hit mute, that will help.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Catherine. We'll edit you back in so we can wrap that up.
No, that's okay. I'm good.
And then Emma, you're our somatic healer, and you have some other awesomeness about you. You want to introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you so much. Thanks, Laurie, for having me here. So my name is Emma Stawiki. I'm actually based in Australia. So I am joining you from Thursday morning.
From the future.
Yeah, so it's 10 a.m. here. So it's I always freaks me out, that time thing, to think that people are on different places. But yeah, so I am medium, a spiritual life coach, which also includes the somatic healing as well. So that's what I do as part of coaching people. Mine different because growing up, I always had experience within that psychic realm, but I never ever believed that it was available to me because I guess from watching famous psychics and people, I had this belief that you had to be born to a psychic. You had to be born into that, and it was not something you could actually move or was available to me. So I probably had my spiritual awakening around about 8 years ago. And that is when I then realized that these things were actually available to me. So although I've had experiences, I always believed that those experiences were out of me, right? That they were happening outside of me, and it wasn't something which was integrated in me. So yes, my journey has been quite interesting because I, in a very short space of time, have climbed into this space, which is amazing, and working full time in my business and helping people, also other people, journey, help them to release, what they're carrying, and actually move into the holistic space. So yeah, it's been very interesting.
Are you in your winter season there?
I'm in the winter season, can you tell?
Yeah.
It's winter, it's 22 degrees and it's a bit cold today.
Yeah, it's like 118 here today.
Yeah.
So why don't you share with us a little bit about, we're all, in this conversation, we are all spiritually inclined and sort of understand how energy and healing works, but not everybody in our audience really understands how our bodies hold energy, and maybe it will stem from trauma or whatnot. But if you were to talk to somebody who had no idea what it was, what you did, and why you did it, how would you explain that?
Okay, so I guess the way I would explain it is that, the body always remembers. So what I find in myself with the clients I work with, when they come to me, they actually have a problem, but it's actually the wrong problem. So they have this belief that, that they're not good enough, or, they need to learn more or be different to actually be themselves and move into where they want to, whichever, whether that's relationships or business or whatever that might be, they feel stuck. And that's something that often people say to me, they feel stuck but also that they feel as though they are not their authentic self, right? They're wearing like masks for different circumstances, like they might avoid groups or, you know, certain circumstances or situations. So when they come to me, what generally happens is we just end up having a conversation, and the conversation will always emotions, all right? The emotions like fear. And what happens then is we delve into that fear more. Fear is just a surface word, okay? And the really with somatic work, it's about reconnecting what the mind thinks to the body and the feelings within the body. Because of the disassociation that happens a lot between the mind and the body. So when I work with someone, I really work with them to come out of the mind and into the feeling space. And that's what really somatic therapy boils down to. It really boils down to feeling space. What are you feeling? And where is it in the body? You know, what does it look like? How does it feel? What's the texture? And really just reconnecting them to the body, because everyone, or a lot of us, right, in the 3D and our humanness, we're living in our mind, right? We're busy. We have to logically think. We have to logically function. And then we push down the feelings because we have to be strong. We have to be brave. We have to just, you know, motor forward, right, and get through everything. Yeah. And in doing that, we're shutting down this feeling of, this doesn't feel right, maybe I shouldn't be here, you know, and we push it to the side because our logical mind wants to drive us forward.
The commonality in everything you said is that the two main things I got out of what you said is our mind and our body. So our mind, our body, and feelings are the three keywords I got out of what you said. And when we look at how our mind is conditioned, and how that conditioning creates a feeling or an emotion in it that maybe at times is triggered by an outside circumstance, then we feel it in certain parts of our body. And sometimes it'll stay for a second and we'll just let it go. And sometimes it'll stay and it'll get trapped. Like you said, people feel stuck. Yeah. But the thing I've been hearing a lot lately, and it never really registered, because you remember back years ago when they started studying water. Well, we're 98% water, is that right? And they were showing how the studies are where you will put words on water or talk to water, and you'll see with a microscope what you've done to the water. And I'm thinking, well, our brain is controlling the water in our body. Yeah. And if we let it go or not, will determine if we hold positive or negative water. So I think the work that you, Emma, do is super important, because people don't realize that a lot of times their pains could just go away. Literally, they could just go away if we would just recognize and maybe feel through the dark pain and then shift past it. So what is tell us a little bit more about that process. So let's say if I came to you and, you know, I've been getting really bad migraines in my mind, and I haven't had them before, and they're new. It's something that just started, and I wanted to maybe come to you and maybe have you help me shift that energy. What would that look like?
Yeah, with somatic, obviously with something like specific, say, a migraine, you know, we would be looking first at obviously the chakra system, your energy system, okay, and identifying that obviously, you know, a migraine is in the crown chakra, in this crown chakra area. But really what I do with people is get them to close down their eyes and drop into their body. And what we want to do is identify, is this migraine attached to an emotion? Because somatic therapy is all about releasing these stuck emotions within the nervous system. So the way that happens is that when an event happens, or a trauma or something that triggers you, if it's not fully processed time of the actual event, it will store within the nervous system. and it will
So you mean if we
replay.
don't acknowledge it? Do you mean like, so like what if it's a man and he doesn't cry enough, or he just like, we tell our kids to just, you know, let it go, you'll be fine, that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. So if a child, or like if a man or is in a situation, we'll take a child for instance, is in a situation where they are distressed, but their distress isn't fully reset. So I see the nervous system, this is just my belief, right, is like a clock, say from 12 to 12. So when you're activated, your clock starts to move, okay? So the activation starts to escalate. So say that the clock then gets to 6, okay? And that's the height of our escalation at that time. We might be crying, or we might be frustrated, or we might be angry. If we don't allow the body to feel that emotion and actually move through to a reset, so like the resetting of that, so we actually move through, we stay in that elevated position, and we don't actually fully reset ourselves by expressing or getting that out. For instance, a man crying or a child being stressed. What happens is, my belief in the holistic space is that the nervous system then has a new setting point. So it's a bit like if you have someone that wants to cross the road on a red man and they activated, they're like, no, we can't do that, you know, we can't, you know, cross that road on a red man because that's not right. I will feel activated. But then you have someone that, in order to feel the same activation, needs to jump out of an aeroplane to have the same activation. All right. So it's like their nervous systems are completely different in the capacity that they can hold. Does that make sense? And then what happens is the person that needs to jump out of the airplane needs more and more thrill and activation for their nervous system to kick in. And this is where the addiction behavior and things also, because they need to feed their nervous system more and more to actually feel the activation of that, which is why it's really important to reset
in the body. What's happening? So the people that have to get that high, you know, that dopamine high or that dopamine hit, what's happening in the chakra system or in the energy system? Like, so I understand that some people have that need, but if you were to work with them and relieve that need, what would that entail? Would you need to release energy from a chakra, or would you
So the way that I work somatically is we actually go back into the unconscious mind and we actually release the energy somatically from the events where it actually embedded in the soul pathway. So there is different ways to do this. Because I'm a psychic medium, I work in that space of the holistic and more of the soul pathway. So when I work with my clients, I have a technique in which I will take their unconscious mind, so that what they've suppressed in the unconscious mind, the bit under the iceberg, you know, the iceberg with the 5% we're living in, we take them into the 95%. And in that 95%, the unconscious mind and higher self will take them to an event in this life, in vitro, or in a past life where this is embedded, this emotion and trauma has embedded within their soul pathway. And within that event, identify the emotions which are stuck in parts of the chakra system, and we will release them at the root cause of the trauma, the root trauma. Somatically, what that looks like is very different for everybody. So the somatic release can come like with crying, it can be yawning, it can be shouting, breathing, shaking, moving. It's a very individual process for every person. And also it just depends on how heavy and embedded the actual emotion and trauma is, because emotion is just energy in motion. Emotion
Yeah.
gets stuck. The energy of that emotion, the fear that happened at that event, whatever that might be, the sadness of the event that happened, the emotion of that just gets embedded in our system, and the energy gets stuck, which is why people say, I get stuck. They feel stuck.
So I understand. You two jump in as well. When I envision what you're saying, Emma, as far as stuck, let's say I'm aware now that I have stuck energy and I went to you and we worked on it, right? And I removed it and things are better. If I'm one of those people that are self-aware or maybe learning to be self-aware, how would I live my life in a way that I don't get energy stuck? What does that entail? Does that mean that I need to feel my emotions, live like from an authentic place and allow myself to feel and release, even though it might not be appropriate in society or appropriate to our friends or family? Or, what if somebody triggers something? Do I need to feel through it? Is that what it entails to not get energy stuck in us?
Yeah, I think identifying it is a really big thing. Okay. So it's like, the mind and the body connection back together. It's a trigger, for me is always a teacher. And that's what I always tell all of my clients. If you are triggered by something or someone, it's asking yourself, like getting curious. What do I need to know here? What is it that I'm making this mean about myself when this person is triggering me? Because often what happens is we get a sensation in the body, say someone, speaks to us in a certain way, it's triggering something in us to ask questions about ourselves. Anytime we want to judge someone for something or we want to make someone wrong, we have to really look inside ourselves by that trigger, then the feeling, and say, okay, I see you. I see you. What is it that I need to really know about this situation in order for it? And it's like our nervous system is like our internal GPS. It's giving us messages all of the time. So when we're triggered, it's giving us a message, there's something here that we need to look at. What is this about? Because it's always about us. It's never about that other person. It's always something in us that we need to look at and say, let's get curious. Breathe into the space. You might feel it, say, mine often is in my solar plexus is always the thing that tells me that there's something to look at. And then what I do is I kind of stop myself, breathe through it. Taking some really big, deep breaths always really helps. I'm a big advocate for breath work. Okay. And just taking some really big, deep breaths, like 3 deep breaths, and saying, okay, what is it that I need to know about this situation so that I can act? And then allowing what's coming in for you, okay? For you, not about that person, but for you. Breathing through that, because when I take people in somatically, interestingly, what we do is we turn action in order to feel it, to release it.
Yeah, it's, as humans, we are not only multi-dimensional beings, but we are multifunctional beings. Yeah. And I think that people don't realize that we're experiencing, so our consciousness is experiencing all these senses. Yeah. And all these senses, create feelings in our body. And our body is like an amplifier or a thermometer or like a emergency alert system. It's like the reason we feel with our body is so that so I heard years ago that there was a girl who lost feeling. Mm-hmm. She couldn't feel pain, and she broke every bone in her body over time. And I really realized at that point that when we feel things, it's like an alert. Yeah. Like even if it's a a positive thing. It's an alert. You're happy. And this is, but if it's not, and you wonder what it is you're feeling, that's when we do like what you said, where we go deeper, figure out why did that happen to so-and-so, but they didn't feel the way I feel when that happened to me, and it forces us to dig deeper. And then that's where our consciousness experience comes in. Yeah. So the idea really is to dig deeper because that's where all our lessons hide. So if people could become more aware of where we have energy in our body trapped, or where maybe some of our conditioned experiences are in our body, we might be able to move through them and learn our lessons a little easier and not keep repeating the same patterns and the same mistakes over and over.
And that's exactly right. And, inside of the program that I have, it's really about finding your authentic self. It's about actually releasing all of these things that you have stored and that you believe to be true about yourself, which actually aren't truths. They're just beliefs that have embedded in you through life experience, developmental, environmental, past lives, ancestral trauma. Like we could go on, right? Like you could go down any one of those rabbit holes really easily. But, my passion is really allowing people to understand that they are able to release those beliefs about themselves through releasing, the feelings of like not being seen or not feeling worthy, not being able to trust themselves is another really big one that I work with people in, to then allow them to also almost like be free, right? Be free from all of those conditions and allow them to actually find inside of that. And not the conditions that they have believed over or programming and it's actually really interesting therapy, like I've had experiences with people, like I had an experience with a lady who had complete attachment anxiety. So she couldn't, move through this. Every relationship, every person, she just like leached herself to them. And she just didn't understand why that pattern kept happening. And she was driving people away. And it was crazy because in the unconscious, when she was born, she was taken away from her mom and she couldn't find her. And that created this belief in her soul pathway that people were going to leave her all the time. So she clung to them so deeply that she caused that to happen in her reality.
So it created an anxious attachment issue.
Yeah.
Where does she hold that in her body?
Yeah.
Like where in her body would you go to release that energy?
It's really individual. So there isn't somewhere specific that would be. Okay. So that is very individual for the person's journey. So with her, it was she held it. I believe hers was her heart space and kept that in the heart chakra. And when we released all of the emotion that was in her body that happened at the time of her birth, then she was able to release it from her soul and process it, and come back to reality and see the truth that, you don't have to be attached to people and they're not going to leave. And it's like almost like when we release the emotion that's attached to the event that we believe's happened and we can see the truth, then we can look at the event from almost like a third party perspective, right? And see what is really going on and not what our body was telling us or what we believed in our conscious.
Taking it a little step further then. So, how they say that, like when a child is in a mother's womb, for example, and you're sharing energy, you're sharing space, you're part of the mother until you're released. And even then there's that invisible cord, but like literally whatever the mother is going through, the child is feeling.
Sure.
So have you had people come in where they have energy stuck that isn't theirs?
Yeah, 100%, for sure. So, when the unconscious mind tells us where we're going, if the unconscious takes us in vitro, then for sure, the emotions that are attached to this event belong to the mother and not actually to them.
Right.
So what tends
Right.
to happen is when you go into an event like that, you will ask the unconscious mind, you know, what's the emotion, and they can tell you the emotion, but they are unable to locate the emotion in their own body. So what we do then is we get them to actually connect to mum, and then we connect into mum's energy, and we ask, is this mum? Does this belong to her? Mum, is this yours? And where are you feeling it in your body? And release it like that. Pretty wild. Yeah.
No, it sounds amazing, actually. It sounds similar to what I do with my energy work, except usually my counseling portion comes at the end after I've done the energy shifting and the working, and then, you know, I usually do a session before and a session after where there's conversation. Yeah. And a lot of times things that come up are, you know, like the way we were raised. And so, you know, Catherine mentioned something early on in her introduction that I found fascinating. And I'm curious, Catherine, if anything somatic played out in you regards to it, because you mentioned that you had been raised in a cult. And I'm sure on your search for, you know, understanding and truth, you know, when you started doing your meditation and whatnot, you know, having this conversation with Emma, how do you relate to, or what's your takeaway?
No, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in what could be equivocated as a handmaid's tale. The group that I grew up in is behind a lot of what is going on in the country today. I've had a broken spine since I was 13 years old. Somatic work is absolutely the lifeblood of my existence. I have a foam roller, and I am one of those people that has a very high pain tolerance. I am one of those people that jumped out of my body and has spent the last 27 years figuring out how to get back in my body.
Yeah.
And for me, it is just being able to hang, do micro muscle movements, use gravity and the ground, and find all of those pressure points within my body, which then reconnects me to the physicality of my body and moves that energy out. I also went through Rohan therapy years ago, back in like the early 2000s, where I did regress all the way back into my mother's womb and beyond. And I did deal with that way, because yes, that was absolutely a thing that came up. But I would say for the people that are like me, you're not necessarily going to identify the emotion. If you are somebody who's working your way back into your body, movement, micro movements, moving with gravity, using acupressure, acupuncture, weighted blankets, whatever it takes, movement, small, not extreme movements, not like go to the gym and bench press 250 pounds. No, it's small, focused, targeted, stretched out micro movements.
Yeah, because if you think about it, it makes sense why yoga became such a phenomenon and why it was so big in India, but then became such a phenomenon here in the West, because we didn't, and even then when we learned about yoga, we just knew it felt good, but we didn't really realize what it was doing. So back in about over a year ago, about a year and a half ago or more, I went through some ayahuasca ceremonies. I felt called doing some yoga work, and I really enjoyed the hot yoga because I was sweating energy out. But what I learned, and I didn't know, and this is where I started becoming fascinated with somatic healing, was that the yoga was, I would be in tears the next day. I would be just crying and for no reason. And I couldn't figure it out until I realized, because I'm moving parts of my body that I never move, and I'm releasing anything stuck in those areas. And I was like, you know, it makes me a little nervous to go to yoga because I don't know what trauma I'm going to start releasing from it. But really, it changed me. And I never really realized that yoga was a healing modality as much as maybe physical exercise modality, but it really is the perfect way if you are not one of those people that feel comfortable going to people like you, Emma, where, you might get in there. They might be too personable, like intimacy, it might be too personable when you share your pains. That if you go to yoga and you're open enough with yourself to reflect upon what it was you released, maybe something would come of it. Have you done work on yourself at all, Emma?
Yeah, I've gone through all of this therapy myself. Literally, this is how we end up normally in this position, right? Because, and
it really
I
is,
agree with you, and I 100% agree with Catherine. It's a journey, right? And you just meet yourself wherever you are on your journey. And, whether that's, I know somatic yoga is massive here in Australia now. I'm not sure where you guys are, but, that more just the gentle rolling of the hips and, that kind of yoga is huge here as well too. And it's really about meeting someone where they're at on it. And for sure, the work that I do is when a person gets to the point, I have to be honest, for me, it was like, I am done with this. I'm done with it. Like, ready to get the rest of it out. And
you have to be ready.
You have to be ready. And exactly. And all those small things that you're doing, reconnecting with the body, the movement, just stuff it's amazing. And then
I have a question about, you said that fascia. So that's been coming up for me a lot lately.
Yeah.
So, and I never really knew it existed, but I'm somebody who carries extra weight on their body, but it's always been a unconscious, I'm super empathic.
Yeah.
Like, I absorb all the emotions in it, and I did it as a child. It was a way also to protect myself, like to kind of hide and not be the center of attention. So over the years, I would gain and then lose a lot and then gain it back. And so my fascia, is that how you say it? Am I saying it right? The layer of skin, is it considered skin? Or is it the layer between the fat and the muscle?
Tissue. No,
Connective tissue?
It's between the bone and the muscle. It looks like a white web. It's connective tissue.
Yeah.
So your muscles can be loose, but your fascia can be locked up. I actually worked with a structural alignment therapist for years upon years upon years. And that's what we worked on, was my fascia.
Yeah.
And so it connects it connects all the way through your body. Like it's all,
Correct.
So for me, I have extra skin. So, I have extra fascia. It's like all stretched out because I've gained and lost, and it's just all been out of shape. So do either of you know, like, what does somebody do when they stretch out their human fascia skin? Like we really take a toll on our bodies in our life. And you could see what people have been through just by looking at them as they get older, by how our bodies are, showing. So what do you do for that? Do you do special yoga, special somatic? Like, how do you heal that and tighten that skin back up? Or that fascia?
Collagen. Collagen is good for that, for people who are not vegetarians or vegans. I am both vegetarian and, well, I'm not quite vegan, but I'm a 30-year vegetarian. Collagen is really good for that. It's going to be more nutritional than anything, as long as you keep limber and moving, but learning how to actually feed your body the nutrients that it needs. And everybody is going to be different in that respect.
You can't,
because I thought that there was, go ahead.
I was going to say, there's also like fascia massage that people do well, which actually releases trauma as well, and things from the body, from the fascia. Like there is specialized people that do that work. It is specialized. Yeah.
That's new too. I haven't heard of that. So do you think, so being a somatic healer and that we hold energy in our bodies, do you think that fascia is no different, that the fascia itself needs to be worked out, and maybe things are trapped in that fascia layer of us, or how do you?
Yeah, I
Oh,
do
yeah,
think
absolutely.
yeah, it's not necessarily all about just like the chakra, the energy system. You know, there is different elements of how we store trauma as well. And you know, you mentioned before, like yourself with weight, even that. You know, a key piece I just picked from you there is that you said when you were younger, you used to do that to like not stand out and blend in. So, you know, so in the unconscious mind somewhere there is that you need to carry that weight to be safe, right? So not be seen, right? So that's kind of that piece there that you just said is identifying this served a purpose for you at some point and it kept you safe. So the body believes that that's what it needs in order, even though the logical mind doesn't want that. And that's, you know, a lot want that, but the body's gone, yeah, well, I did a good job last time. So I'll just keep doing that good job, right?
It remembers.
Yeah, I'll just keep protecting you because that, you know, that you've connected the two, like the unconscious has connected the two. Yeah.
So if I wanted to do some self-healing on that, because I know for a fact that this is a thing for me personally, maybe not everybody else. Everybody has their different, you know, reasons there's weight on their body. But for me, I'm not a foodie, and I've never been one that will overeat. And everybody kind of trips on the fact that I have this weight on my body because I'm not a big eater. So if I were to begin to I do my own self-healing work. It just works better for me. What would be some tools or some tips that you, like maybe self-meditation, self-hypnosis, like what would you suggest to work on that? Telling my brain that I don't need it anymore. Like I don't need to hold on to it anymore. It's okay the world is safe. I mean, clearly I'm okay with it because I'm on a podcast and I'm letting everybody see me.
Yeah.
So yeah. But as a kid, I didn't really want to be the spotlight, and it wasn't for everybody. I didn't get the attention that I was the first grandchild, the first female grandchild. So I was super spoiled very early on. I remember I was making people laugh at a party. I was probably 3 and I was eating it up like a little 3-year-old would. And I remember hearing my dad say, "Okay, Lori, that's enough." And being pretty firm about it. And I remember thinking, but why? Everybody's happy and having a good time and it felt good. And he just shut me off. Like that was no, Lori, that's enough. And so, and then my relationship with him moved on in life to being where I'm not even in his life and, you know, shut off from it. So, and then the mother was the controlling one, you know, of course. So I'm wondering if maybe I did it to hide from the negative attention from male figures as opposed to, or maybe negative attention at all, just to kind of, I don't know. I can't seriously pinpoint it, but I definitely feel like it.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because at the beginning of the conversation, I think I said something like, what we think is the problem logically actually isn't the problem unconsciously, because the brain will never work it out. It'll never work it out because it's always going to give you different stories. It might be this and that. And I do believe with this kind of therapy, you do need to have someone facilitate it for you to allow you to go where you need. Because personally, for me, I have someone that I reach out to when something comes up for me, because it's important us as well as healers and holding space for other people that we allow other people to do that for us so that we can go deep enough to get to the root cause. You will get the memories that will come up that you think's attached to it, but it will never be the actual root cause because you don't be there. Yeah.
I'm so sensitive with energy. Yeah. And so to the point that the last healing, so I stopped doing healing for many years because of it. And I did a healing session very recently for a friend. And at the end of the session, while we're talking, I'm standing, talking through it, shaking the energy off my hands. And I started getting a hive on my hand. And I just started rubbing it. And I'm like, and I used it as an example for him so that he could understand how energy works. And I'm like, this isn't mine, and then we continued talking and I continued shaking and it went away. And so I know that I am that, and I know that one of the things I've gone through in life is learning how to regulate my emotions, which is something I think that all somatic healers probably teach as well, so that people don't start trapping that, but like to regulate the emotion and not maybe letting it overextend itself. And we can learn to respond instead of react.
It's like that reset button, isn't it? Like we were talking about before. It's like almost like when that comes up, being able to hit the reset button and say, this is okay, I'm safe, I'm here, I know I'm all right, I know this is just a reaction to, and I just need to breathe my way through it, and I'm going to be all right, I'm safe. And it's more about not hitting that emergency button, but actually hitting the reset. And what I find once I've worked with clients who are storing so much of that energy, like their vibration, you know, of the stuck and stored energy, like as we know, like all of our at a Stephen Hawkins. Just Stephen Hawkins.
I can picture what you're talking about because I've seen the chart. I can totally picture it.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't actually realize that that's the case. And, you know, when I show them that, they're really quite surprised at the emotions that are attached. And then also, you know, the other belief systems around each of those emotions. Like you were mentioned earlier about men who are angry, right? Or men that are cry when they're children, they're told, don't get angry, it's not socially acceptable, you know, don't cry because, you know, that's not a man, you know, you're just going to be girly if you cry. So, you know, we look at our society and how much we have you know, disclosure, obviously take their own life. And, you know, men who, you know, are in, or women that are in DV situations, right? With these men, so much repressed emotions because they've never reset them. It's like, I say to my clients, it's like packing for a holiday and continuing to put more and more stuff in the suitcase to the point where you have to stand on it to try and get it closed because it's bursting open. Eventually, when that suitcase comes off the carousel at the end, all of your shit is going to be on display, all of it, because you've just packed it in so tightly.
Yeah. Which is, so on my path of helping others, because I am so sensitive with the healing aspect, I've learned to use resources and tools to help people with self-awareness and learn about themselves, because really that woman that you're referring to, if she stopped long enough to start seeing the patterns, she be able to become mindful and maybe choose differently the next time. So my goal, I really truly believe in, especially with the podcast, is, and because I've learned so much, that I can feel the difference between my emotions and other people's emotions. And if I don't even have to be in the room with them, and I can identify that it's not mine because I'm so self-aware. It's like, I know that's not mine. I have no reason to feel this because this isn't, you know, there's nothing going wrong in my life, or I haven't done anything because I've allowed myself to be authentic. So my goal really is to bring on people like yourself, Emma and Catherine and Matt, who are soul searching and self-aware to help plant seeds in other people so that they do become more self-aware. I mean, astrology, healing, meditation, whatever it takes. There's so many different avenues to go within, you know. If people can learn that what's happening to them isn't outside of them, it's how they respond to it. Then they'll start to realize. So today I saw this post. I couldn't even believe it because so many people like high-fived, so to speak. But he basically was saying in this post that Earth is growing and ascending, which we all know Earth is growing and ascending, but it's doing away with all the bad people and ascending and leaving the bad people behind. And I'm like, because, you know, here we are all with light and I'm leaving. And I was like, you have it backwards. Like, you have to have light and dark. That's the spiritual law of the universe. You have to have one. You can't have one without the other. And really what's happening is you're recognizing your light by seeing what, and they're going to recognize their light by seeing yours, so it's like we are in this together. It's all about connection.
Mhm.
It's all about understanding that what's playing out in front of us is what's going on inside of us, and recognizing what is going inside of us, because I've tuned it out for so many years. I've overdone on coffee. I don't have any energy. I'm so exhausted. And and I'm scrolling through my phone to get that dopamine hit because I don't know how to sit with myself with a book anymore and read past 4 sentences, or I need to jump out of airplanes for the high, like you were saying. It's like we're always reaching for a different feeling because we don't want to sit with the ones that we have.
Wow.
One of the best tools I've ever found in my life is just going and sitting outside.
Nature.
Literally grounding. Whether it's my bum on the ground, or I am laying flat down on the ground, or I am outside in my bare feet.
Yeah.
That's my go-to reset for everything at this point in time in my life. I have a very high stress job in the tech industry that has global ramifications, and there are multiple times a day where I may walk away from my computer and just go sit outside for 5 minutes because I need to reset and readjust. And just connecting with the earth like that is an extraordinarily valuable tool for so many. I mean, it's available to everybody for nothing.
That's why I find myself talking to animals.
Like,
like they're more in tune with the natural way of life than we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me,
I agree with you.
Going on in my yard right now. But
you have a beautiful yard. I've seen your yard.
And I think as well,
just
it's for me, it's
time with the earth.
And the other thing that's free, because often when we're in a high state of stress, we forget to breathe. And, I always say to my clients, anytime that you feel any resistance or triggers, stop and just actually intentionally breathe.
Right.
The breath is the only thing that's keeping you alive. If you don't breath, then you're not alive. And, at the end of the day, the beautiful, going to the earth and just breathing. If you can't get to the earth, just breathe. If you can't, breathe, just get to the earth and find the breath that, just to bring that back into your body to make you know you're alive, you're okay. And I think this is a really big thing because it can then stop us. It's like an intervention. Something's triggering me. Okay, let's just stop. I just need to stop, just breathe into my body, reconnect. And that's in each breath of reconnecting, and often it's about breathing out more than breathing in. So I always just say, take 4 breaths in, hold 4 breaths and breathe 8 out, because you're wanting to really move the energy, and that's how the energy is going to move,
What's your advice for people, and both of you? I would love to hear both of your guys' insight. What is your advice to people who are scared to see their darkness, who are scared to feel their feelings? Because really the reason most of us go through the same patterns over and over is because we get comfortable with the familiarity of the pain and we just deal with it. We're familiar. We know what to expect from that pain. That pain, we become dependent on that toxic behavior because we know what's going to happen. But if we walk through it, or if we walk through the pain that we avoid, it's scary as hell. So what is your both of your insight on helping other people learn to just stare in the mirror at themselves and meditate or be alone in silence with themselves? How do we get people to do that? Because that's all it takes.
So I actually did the whole staring in the mirror and telling myself I love myself thing probably in my early 20s. That was incredibly difficult. And I still have to do it occasionally, throughout the month. And there are some times where it's more difficult than others. But something else that I've incorporated into my life for a long time now, waking up every day and putting my right hand over my heart, my left hand over my right hand, and just, you can say it out loud or not, just saying, I love you, and just sitting in that space before I even get up out of bed. And as you bless your own heart, you also simultaneously bless all the hearts in the world, because we are all connected. And And I have used this with children for years. I used to work in a high risk elementary school. Just being able to stop and put your own hands over your heart, even if you can't even say the words "I love you," stopping and putting your own hands over your heart, that's a starting point. That is actually giving yourself love that you did not receive in a moment when you needed it. And you can start there.
So even people who, like you just said, can't say it or
Mm-hmm.
don't feel it, if they don't feel it, should they just pretend and tell, should I just tell myself I love you, you're beautiful, even if I don't believe it?
No,
Fake it till you make it.
don't take words out of it. Take the words out of it and just put the hands with no words.
I
And
love
just
that.
hold yourself wordlessly.
I love that. Hug yourself.
Yeah.
What about you, Emma? What's your perspective?
I guess for me, it's we'll always go down the path of least resistance, right? So if the pain is comfortable, that's where the neural pathways are. It's comfortable, and sometimes we choose pain, right? And we're like, why the hell do we do that? We choose it. Yeah. And I guess
like, why did I do that again? Why did I do that again? That hurt. Why did I do that again?
Because you were right in what you said. There's comfort in the familiarity of the pain that we're sitting in. And that's why some people never wake up to that in their life like that. And I truly believe that not everyone is meant to wake up and heal from that. I believe that it is their journey, right? That they're going on. And I honestly believe that it's a decision that comes to you to decide that you've had enough. That's my belief. And I know that everyone is different. This is just mine, and everyone has to run that through their own filter system and take what is with them and leave what doesn't. But my belief that people that are meant to go down the journey of healing will decide. There will come a point where they make that choice. They decide to go on a different pathway and seek that resolve. That was my journey for me, because I believe that my sole purpose here was to be the chain maker for my ancestral line and my children moving forward. And as I say that, I can feel the emotion that's coming into my body when I say that. And there's so many people that I work, they are that person for their lineage and their line. They are the change makers, and that's not everyone's journey. And you know what? That's okay. Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. It really is, because you made a really good point, and that's where the word judgment shouldn't be part of our human language, because this weaving of life we have, like we were talking about earlier, there's going to be positive and there's going to be negative, and some are here to do the negative, to be a catalyst for the positive for somebody else, and somebody's going to be a positive for the negative. It's like it's all this like messy yet divinely orchestrated, society and world. And who are we to judge that somebody, or put a label even, like not even a label. It's just they are who they are, and we should just love them anyway, because it's serving a purpose. And that's what true compassion means, is to acknowledge, have an awareness and acknowledge the suffering of another, and not have the need to change it. And that's, I think, was part of my problem doing healing work on others, is that I tell them all the time, I can do this for you. I can work with you on this, but I can't do it if you're not willing to do the work. And you said it. If they're not willing to do the work, then they're not ready, and maybe they're not meant to be ready, or maybe they'll be ready in their own time. But
it's a choice. It's a choice. And because what I think the understanding in that as well is that it's not always that they are not ready to do the decision. It's just that their protective self wants to keep them safe. It's the resistance that they're feeling to, this is not going to work. Why am I doing this right now? And it's all it is, it's the ego I think the ego gets a really bad rap. And I feel like we've gone completely off somatic therapy, but it's all part of the biggest umbrella, is that, the ego gets a bad rap, right? Yes, there is egotistically people, but our ego is born from a trauma. and it's born to keep us safe. And I like to refer to the ego as the protective self. Okay, so when the protective self says, Emma, don't go on that podcast tomorrow because that's really scary and you're going to have to talk to people. And what if you stuff up? And what if you say something wrong? And, you know, what if people don't like you? And then you have to then have your authentic self. No, that's okay. I've got this. I know I can come and talk about this subject and I can empower people and people need to hear what I've got to say. And then I am able to counteract that protectiveness and let them know, hey, it's okay now, I've got this. And I can do that because I've done this work. I've done the work in order to know who I am and who I am not.
Yeah.
And to identify which part of me is actually talking.
Right. That's where self-awareness comes in. I really feel that way. Because I need to know not only which part of me is talking. Is it my fearful self, my ego self? Is it my trauma, or is it my authentic self? And learning what your different voices are inside of you. And then also identifying the fact that maybe they're not your voices at all. Yeah, we think that people, I feel so blessed. It's really odd to say, but I feel so blessed to have this human experience, because when you do become more self-aware and you do start to understand how it's all interconnected, how grand and how magical all the different pieces of us are, from our senses to our emotions to our thoughts to like the true power we really have. It's so grand, and how connected everything is, that sometimes it gets me overwhelmed. It's beautiful. It's a big orchestra.
And I think when you can connect to yourself and know that, you know, that is actually all inside of you, that is being created inside and not outside. You know, it's like, you know, nothing that I am experiencing is caused by anything outside of me. So if I am in a position where something outside of me is triggering me, or wants me to judge someone or tell them they're not wrong, or I want to hold my position of my belief is the truth and your belief is not, it's inside that I need to look. Why do I feel the need to do that? What is this telling me? What is the lesson that is here to learn right now in order for me to evolve more? And to be very, very self-aware. So many people are living very much in their 3D and are not self-aware of, you know, their actions and how really everything that they're experiencing, they're giving their power away, right? Like to outside of them, like I say, like, why are you handing people the power?
And why are you sending energy there?
How you feel? Why is that? Why is your value connected to what's outside of you? Because just being you right here in this moment, you are valuable, you are worthy because you are here, you know? But when we attach those inside things to outside things is when we just lose control.
Yeah, it's like a projection. I know my thing lately has been telling people to remember that attention, energy flows where attention goes. So when you allow your attention to be on things that you have no true control over, and it's happening, you're wasting your energy when you could be using that energy on something for your own positive self, your own positive life, children's positive life. And it's like there's so much noise in our world now. Like it's getting noisier all the time with the connection we have to technology. It's so noisy that we lose our voices in ourselves because we hear so many other voices we don't know. And so it's really like you both said, it's about connecting with the earth and tuning out the things that don't matter and giving our energy things that matter and really caring about the things that don't and giving it that. I think I think that would be the easier path. But you mentioned earlier, you know, that take the easier path, you know, but I think the easiest path really is the natural familiarity, tuning out and tuning in.
Well, I was gonna say, I've had multiple times in my life where I've just had to go into some form of personal quarantine, specifically to just shut down all the other voices so that I could find my own. And I still do that with technology today. Like, I have to take a break. It's an outside day today. It is away from screens. It is away from voices. And I had a college professor back in like 2000, and she was a great lover of Viktor Frankl, but she always used to say, your words create your world. And that is absolutely correct. But that has now changed. And it's not only our words, but it's all the words we read, all the words we listen to, all the words that we let into our worlds are now creating our worlds. And there's so many more words from so many external sources. So where are you getting your words from? Where are they coming
especially
from?
with social media?
That right there is enough to become self-aware. Just trying to recognize where are all these voices coming from, and if you don't know, then shut everything off.
Exactly.
Don't be scared to sit alone. There's nothing wrong with sitting alone. You're going to be bored, but you're going to feel a whole lot better. Emma, you said you had a analogy.
Yeah, I was just going to say the analogy for the energy, right? I always say to my clients, it's a bit like the analogy of everything comes in threes, you know? So where, you know, you stub your toe and then you jam your finger in the car door, and then you actually say to the universe, okay, where's the third thing? Let's just get it over with. And you literally call it in, right? It's like call it in without actually realizing that you call it in.
I just started. So I've been becoming mindful a lot. I've been doing mindful art, teaching mindful art, and becoming, the more aware I am, the more mindful I am. But that's one thing to become mindful, but it's another thing when you take that next step, when you're mindful and you catch yourself and you redirect your thought to a new one. So like the last few weeks, I've really been mindful when I catch myself doing things that I'm not necessarily proud of, or thinking that I'm not necessarily proud of, or knowing it's not really a part of me. I've caught myself saying, nope, and then redirecting my thought to a more positive one, and then allowing that to be my truth. Because like I have to create a new habit. I can't do what I've always done, or I'm not going to change until I change the actual action. And it really is hard. And I tell people all the time, do something different every day. If you get up every day and you do the exact same thing every day, you're going to have the exact same outcome. So I'll do something different. I'll drive a different direction. I'll not go to the bathroom first. I'll go get a drink of water instead of coffee. Like something different in your daily life all the time. If you make it a habit, it's easier. Your brain is has more elasticity to, rewire it, if you don't become stagnant and just doing the same thing that you've always done. And nature is fascinating for that, because it's constantly changing in front of us, from the weather to the animals to, everything that plays. It's like the perfect place to go be and see it in front of us. So.
But it's so true.
Hey, Matt, welcome back.
It's so true, because you're making new neural pathways in your brain, right? Your brain will always, it's like when you're driving and you automatically end up somewhere and you don't know how you've got there, because you're auto-programmed in your neural pathways that's the goal. I do that often. I used to do it with the school run, right? I would have one less child in the car and didn't have to go to one particular school because I had 2 school drop-offs, and still find myself driving to the school even though I didn't have her in the car, because that my neural pathway for that circuit was so strong. And you're right, when you vary your day and vary how you're creating new experiences every single time that you do that. And it's a bit like people that get stuck in that groundhog day, because they're just constantly strengthening the same pathways all of the time. And then it becomes more difficult to do something different. And this is how people get stuck, because it becomes so difficult to then break free from that, because it's so strong. And then have the body, also come on board with the mind to do something different. And that's when that protection mode comes in. And then what happens is people actually just don't do anything, because it gets put in the too hard basket. And
so a lot of times when we wrap up the podcast, I will do some sort of like game or activity. But I think what I kind of want to do now is like ask everybody to share the one piece of like life experience or quote or, guidance that you would give to maybe a listener who is ready to heal or maybe hasn't been able to like push past the bad habits, but they're ready to like start making steps. Like, what would you advise a listener on a new path of growth and change and healing, like start? Like, what would be a start? Catherine, what would you tell somebody who's starting maybe on their path of wanting to grow and change and heal? And it's not an easy path. It's never easy to start. That's why I kind of want to know, like, what are your guys' advice for people who are ready to start? They're like,
I'm going to go back to my early days, and it's something that I still use today. No matter how horrific the world may seem, there is always something that is beautiful in the middle of that horror. And so if you can look for the beauty, focus on the beauty, be grateful for that one beautiful thing that showed up in the middle of everything. And you can do the same thing with people. You find something beautiful about people. But you don't need to jump from fury to joy. You only need to jump from one emotion to the next one slightly better feeling. And just you can do it in baby steps. Keep reaching for that slightly better feeling. But if you can find one thing that is beautiful and you can just focus on it and just sit there and fully appreciate its beauty, fully appreciate that beauty is showing up in your world, no matter how desolate your world may seem, and just have gratitude for it. I guarantee within a couple of moments, something else is going to spark your interest. It is even more beautiful, and you're going to be able to have gratitude for that. And you can follow a path of gratitude out of wherever you are. It's not necessarily going to take you all the joy lickety-split, but it will absolutely get you out of where you are and into that next better feeling. Sometimes it will take you much farther than that. That's one thing I know. There was always something, no matter how horrific it is. There is something of beauty in that scene. You can find it if you look for it, and if you just be grateful for it, you will find other things to carry you forward and out of there.
I love that. I totally agree with that.
I felt that so much in my heart space, so much, Catherine. Yeah, and it's true.
Thank you.
It's true because we're constantly checking in the lack, right? We're constantly as humans looking at the lack, what we don't, what we don't have. And I think, for me, the one thing I would say to someone who is at this point where they're gone, I'm done with this, I'm ready, is to say to them, you deserve it. It's like you deserve, the best version of yourself, you to be the best version of yourself. And I agree with Catherine. It's like, just look at what is the next step? What is the one thing, the one just next small step that I can do to honor myself in this, in where I am right now? Don't look at where other people are or what they're doing. Just what is the one thing that I can do for me? Because we can live, it doesn't matter what's happening to us. We have two choices to live. One's from a place of love and one's from a place of fear. And in every circumstance and situation that we're in, we get to choose, do we want to live in love or do we want to live in fear? So that would be my first thing, would be look at what the next step is, where you can live from a space of love right now. And gratitude is 100% the thing that would come in regards to that. From a place of love right now in my life, a truth that I know, what is the one thing that I can look at from a place of love?
I agree with you 100%. I feel like for me, I would remind people that there are 365 days in a year, 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in every hour. And that means that you always have time.
Yes.
You always have time and you always have a choice. Yeah. And in every moment, there's a new moment. So in this moment, you don't feel good. And allow yourself to not feel good and don't feel guilty for it and don't feel shameful for it. Feel sad. If you're sad, feel sad.
Yeah.
Don't hold back. Allow yourself to feel. I think the other thing would be, once you're done feeling, know that in the next minute you get a new breath. You can start again. You don't have to keep feeling that way. Let it go. But if you do, well, that's fine, because tomorrow's a new day. Like, I just feel like people forget and get stuck thinking that it's always going to be this way, because it always feels this way. But that's not true. You always have a choice. And that's my big thing. I even tell my child is like, you always have a choice. Like, you chose to do the opposite of what I said, and that was your choice. Next time you have the choice to do the opposite again. Like, you always have the opportunity. It's never too late to love. It's never too late to love yourself. It's never too late for anything. We are limitless, and and you can always change your mind.
Every weekend is an opportunity to hit the reset button. Every time you wake up, it's the opportunity to hit the reset button for a new day, because you know what? Waking up the next day, it's actually a privilege.
Yeah. People forget. They get so stuck in the darkness here that they don't realize how grand this experience on this planet is. It's so grand to be here at this time. Like, look at the era we're in right now. Like, I know that the planet has been around for tens of thousands of years, right? But the era that we're in with our history, we are at the most evolved state in our history we've ever been in. And we've experienced the 50s all the way to here, the 2000s, and look how far we've came. I mean, it's grand. Who knows where we're going to be in 20 years from now? Like, it's beautiful. It's like it's like living art.
Yeah. And there's many more awakening people as well. I think, the world is evolving so quickly, and, time is moving very quickly, compared to when we were younger, and the world is awakening quicker, and, we are raising our children, a lot of us, in different ways, I guess, than we were raised. And, we are battling with that technology side of it as well. I've got 3 children myself. So, and in finding the balance between really those, for me, like those old-fashioned beliefs, the traditions that you want to withhold, and, and understanding also for them, the world is completely different. Finding the balance in that, because we know that that's where they're going, right? So we have to support that journey too. Yeah.
They don't live in our old world. They live in a new world. We can't raise them that way. The world's not the same anymore. Yeah. We didn't tell everybody how they can get a hold of you if they want to have a session with you.
Oh, yes. Okay, so you can contact me through my website, which is actually just my full name, Emma Stawiki at .com.au. And you can find me on socials. My socials is, my business name is Your Soul Guide. Now, I don't know how that comes across with my accent. Soul Guide. Yeah.
Well, if you email me, I can add it to the show notes.
I'd love that. Yeah, you can connect to me on there. My psychic stuff. I do psychic development as well, mediumship development. And then also the healing space. I really am passionate also about working with other aspiring light workers, because what I find in this industry is a lot of light workers, they stay in development, or they stay stuck here for like 5 to 7 years, and they never really step into their true purpose, because they're holding on to these beliefs of, judgment and not wanting to be seen. And what I have found is taking them through my soul healing program to release all that, then it almost quantum leaps them into their business. So I'm really passionate about working with other light workers to do that too.
Oh, you just triggered me. Maybe I will be in contact with you.
Yeah.
I definitely want to work with you again in general. Just your energy is wonderful and your mission is on point, and we all have a common goal, and so I'm so glad that I got somebody of like heart and mind on the show.
Yeah, thank you.
Which is what I try to do with all my guests, so that we send out the highest vibrational messages possible to the universe. So.
Yeah, well, the universe brought us together very quickly, so that's not a coincidence.
No, I don't think so. Well, thank you again, and thank you, Catherine and Matty